In the meantime, here's our reporter Anna Collinson's first film.
A hernia mesh repair is supposed to be a simple procedure, but once the permanent device is implanted, it can be extremely dangerous to remove. This means if something goes wrong, many patients have to live with the complications, like chronic pain.
Hope that somebody can fix me, somebody can help. If I was told this is the life for me and there was nothing I could do, I don't think I want to live it.
Scrubbing brush I just took from my sink.
Experts are now warning basic household appliances undergo more tests than some types of mesh devices.
That's how irresponsible this is. People are putting more thought into these disposable cups than they are putting into the mesh.
These vacuoles are where the mesh fibers used to be.
We've been leaked shocking footage which shows mesh manufacturers are aware of the possible complications, but have kept selling it anyway, including to the NHS. And as we exclusively reveal the NHS has purchased more than 100 different types of mesh, experts are warning trusts are using too many implants with little or no medical evidence. But surgeons who use mesh insist these fears are nothing more than scaremongering, and that the majority of patients live healthy lives, complication-free. Hernia repair is one of the world's most common surgical procedures, most often in the groin. Using mesh has been surgeons' preferred choice for over 3 decades because it's cheaper than previous methods and requires less time in hospital. It also appeared to reduce complication rates and the chances of a hernia returning. More than 20 million operations are performed globally every year. In England, it's around 100,000. The majority go well. The hernia mesh industry is worth billions of pounds, but as the number of devices has rapidly increased, regulation has not. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Christy Armitt is a chemist who focuses on plastics. He's been an expert witness in vaginal mesh lawsuits in the US, where he lives. What happens when mesh is implanted in the human body?
So the first thing that happens is it gets rejected, right? Your body says, hey, there's a foreign part in here. Just like it would if you had a splinter, you get an inflammation. Your body tries to react to this foreign body and take care of it, and in the best case, remove it.
For most, this initial reaction subsides, but for some, like David Ellis, who we interviewed in 2018, the reaction continues. Over months or years, the mesh can weaken. It can become sharp, cutting into tissue and nerves, making the simplest of movements extremely painful. Most mesh products are made from the plastic polypropylene. Part of Chris's job is rigorously testing plastics to see if they're suitable and safe to be used in household items. He was stunned when he discovered how little long-term testing had been done on some mesh devices.
Designing dishwashers or vacuum cleaners or automotive parts, you go really nuts with your test. You have your brand reputation and the safety of your customer in mind. So to think that that wasn't done in the medical case is especially shocking.
Why should people be listening to you when you talk about mesh?
2 reasons. One is I've spent my whole life in plastic materials and I'm considered a world expert in it. And secondly, I have no motivation to favour one side or the other. I'm speaking to you unpaid because I think the public deserve to know the truth.
This programme has been contacted by nearly 300 people who've experienced problems following a hernia mesh repair. Complications include chronic pain, infections, mesh erosion and organ perforation. 100 of those people volunteered to answer a series of questions about their experiences and to be part of the Victoria Derbyshire programme's hernia mesh database. Our 100 contributors come from across the UK. The youngest is just 12 years old, the oldest 79, and we've had some really distressing cases. Athletes who can no longer compete, parents who can't carry their children, and people who are once active, now housebound, lonely, and have told us they often feel suicidal because of the pain. Rosanna Clarkin's story was one of the most shocking. She had a hernia repair in 2015, but had no idea doctors had used mesh on her. She says she was told recovery would take weeks. The mum of 2 delayed her wedding for 2 years, hoping the pain would go. Instead, it got worse. And when you think about that day, what's the word that springs to mind?
Pain. Pain. It got to a point where I was attending hospitals and people were saying it was in my head and I was psychosomatic. I had discussed with my husband that I wanted to end my life. I couldn't live how I was living any longer because nobody was listening and I knew there was something not right.
But in September 2018, Rosanna watched our programme and saw a man called David Ellis speaking about his hernia mesh complications. His symptoms were similar to hers.
I have so many times come close to ending it because of the pain.
So after that I started to investigate, and then in the 10th of October got an email confirmation from a second opinion surgeon's secretary confirming that I had the same as what David had. The show and David is why I'm here and why I'm fighting.
Rosanna is now jobless, housebound and registered as disabled.
My kids wrote a letter saying that they just want their from mum back, which, sorry. It's hard. My husband wrote a supporting letter stating he married a wife and became a carer. I'm only 36 now, I was 33 when I had the mesh put in. I shouldn't be living the life I'm living.
100 people who've experienced complications took part in our database. Chronic pain is a common complication, but 92 of them say their doctors never warned them it could be a side effect. 28 out of 100 have had suicidal thoughts because of the complications. One of them was Rosanna. When we asked how many times they visited their GP or surgeon, many different phrases came up, but there was often an overriding theme. But despite the problems, only a quarter have been able to have their mesh removed. Most have been told there are no trained removal surgeons, or that removing it could lead to further complications. The hernia mesh complication rate is much debated, but international guidelines say it's between 10 and 12%. That's 1 in 10 patients who will experience significant chronic pain. Rosanna didn't know the complication rate. This was her reaction when we told her.
That's shocked me, sorry.
Can you explain talk me through what you're thinking? Talk me through what's going on in your mind.
They know that 1 in 10 people. Sorry. So they're playing the lottery of our lives. It's a risk that they're willing to take.
Thank you for your messages. Charlie tweets this. It's heartbreaking for me to have a 29-year-old boyfriend reduced to tears on a daily basis because of the chronic pain he's been in for nearly 2 years. Doctors don't care, and he now has to leave his trade as a mechanic because he cannot work anymore. He's 29. This emailer says, I've had several hernia repairs and I've always had pain in that area ever since then, but no one seems to listen. I was told there will always be some discomfort, but not like this. This texter says, I had mesh in my pelvis for a hernia when I was 25 and it's never caused me any issue. And one more for now, somebody who doesn't leave their name. My dad died after the mesh turned septic and was breaking down in his stomach. He went in for an op to try to fix it and he didn't come back. These are really shocking. Thank you for getting in touch with us this morning. Here in the studio, we have a group of people who have all either had hernia mesh fitted or have had a loved one who've had one fitted. That includes Barbara Tate, whose husband was fitted with one and who believes it contributed to his death. Jacqueline Grimsley had a mesh implanted after a hysterectomy. And Harry Nicola, who after having it fitted struggled to walk ever since. We also have Colin Elton, a surgeon who uses mesh in some of the procedures he carries out. In fact, we'll talk to Colin because he's joining us from his hospital at some point in the next half hour or so. And David Ellis is with us. He joins us from home. David had hernia mesh put in 2014. He's still living with crippling pain now. And of course, he was in Anna's film. And actually, Colin, you are with us, so I do apologise. You're joining us despite your busy schedule as a surgeon, so I'm grateful for that. Also with us, Labour MP Sharon Hodgson, Eloise Power, who's a barrister who specialises in cases involving defective medical equipment, and retired surgeon Peter Jones, who used an alternative to mesh. Right, I'm going to start with you in the studio, if I may, first of all, I would like you to react to our exclusive findings. There are more than 100 different types of mesh being used by the NHS in England and Scotland, being sewn into patients with a hernia with little or no medical evidence. How do you react to that?
Well, I think it's disgusting.
Why?
Because I've seen what it can do. I lost my husband and I've put it down to the mesh, the infection that he got. And before he had that one done, he did have another different kind of mesh, which his body rejected that. They had to take that out. So then they did the last one, and from the minute he'd had his operation, he ended up with an infection. And that was 18 years ago, and it never went away. And then the past 2 or 3 years, his stomach broke down with this infection, and it led to other things, you know.
How do you react, Jackie, to our findings today? We didn't know before today that 100 different types of mesh are being used, and some have literally just been tested on rabbits for 5 days.
Well, it's shocking. I have read that before in the last year as I've been doing more research. And, you know, as somebody in your film said, there's more development and testing goes into a household appliance than does in medical devices. And we assume when we go in to have a medical device installed that some rigorous testing has gone on, and we assume that the Hippocratic Oath of first do no harm applies. But if there's no testing and something is just tested by putting in a rabbit for 5 days, and you're going to put it in a human for 10, 20, 30 years possibly, or longer, you know, some very young people have hernia mesh put in, so it could be in there for several decades, and we're only now starting to find out what happens.
Harry, how do you react?
I mean, how can you, to be honest, how can you use any product if it's not been tested? That's the only way I can say it, to be honest. And it's a, excuse me, it's a serious thing, because after I've had my operation, I've met a lot of people. I had my operation last year. And
to have mesh removed?
To have it removed. So I've had it for 12 years and I had it removed last year, and I'm like a different person. We'll probably talk about it in a bit.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of people with problems. And the thing is you're going into people's bodies, okay? You might cut into a section of the body, you put the mesh in, okay? But then you need to cut through that section again to take the mesh out, okay? So it's very serious. So I speak to a lot of people that have taken out the mesh and they still have issues because you're going in the body too many times, and we need to avoid it. This is the main thing.
You're a politician, Sharon Hodgson. How do you react to this?
I think it's outrageous that more and more I hear about it, and I first heard about it first on your programme with regard to the vaginal mesh years ago, before it was then raised in Parliament, and the more and more I find out about how devastating this is for people's lives. And I've spoken in the House about my mum, who is, her life is, she just keeps saying she's, you know, waiting for it to be over, and how lucky she is that she didn't have this done when she was young as some of the other people, because she's 75 now. But you know, she aged 10 years like that, and you know, is really suffering now. So that really brought it home to me when experiencing it with a loved one, and the numbers of people we're talking about who've been harmed is huge.
I'm going to bring in Colin Elton, because I want to make the best use of your time, if I may, Mr. Elton, because you have got obviously surgery to carry out today. How do you react to our findings? 100 different types of mesh being sewn into patients with little or no medical evidence.
So I fully agree with you that it's on.
No, it's frozen. That's a ridge. Sorry, it did freeze there, Mr. Elton. Do start again. How do you react?
Your programme. I agree with you that on face value, the information you provide.
Okay, that line's not good enough, so I'm really sorry. I'm going to apologise to our audience, because we do want to talk to you. We're going to redial you, and in the meantime, let me go to David. David, hello. How do you respond to what we've uncovered today?
It's shocking. Having done the programme with yourselves in 2018, obviously I've done a lot more research myself, but even I was shocked by what you've come up with today. 100 types, and there are known problems, there are known issues with mesh, yet they still continue to use it. And it's a global issue. I've had people contact me throughout the world since I appeared on your show. And it's not just isolated here, Scotland, USA, New Zealand, Australia, it's everywhere. And I just wish the people would get together and actually investigate it, do some research. I understand why they use it, but make it safe. It's ruined my life.
I wonder how it felt for you, David, watching Anna's report and seeing that because you told us your story back in 2018, you helped Rosanna Clarkin realise that it was mesh that was ruining her life.
Seeing myself on that programme, I didn't recognise myself. All I saw was a slow-moving, grey-haired old man, and that isn't what I have in my head. Rosanna, it's an absolute disgrace what happened with her. It really is. It was such a lovely lady, lovely young family. I listened to her earlier with the footage, and I was in tears, and I'm virtually there again now. So
I have a message actually, David, from Rosanna, which she wanted me to read to you this morning. She says, "Thank you, David. This man's story saved my life. He is my saviour, my hero, and I love this man dearly for the support and guidance he has given me. I owe him my life."
Sheesh. It's difficult to react to that, isn't it? If I've helped one person, then that's a good thing. And yeah, I've been contacting Rosanna. We've been swapping messages, and bless her, she needed help. She needed support. You know, what would her family be if she had have done away with herself? It would be decimated.
Absolutely.
And it's only right and proper that she and her family gets the help and support that they need. And I wish to God the medical world would sit up and take responsibility and help people like her, help people like me. I've had other people who have also messaged me and said virtually the same thing, that seeing me on your show saved their lives.
We hopefully have got Mr. Elton again, Colin Elton, who is a surgeon who uses mesh. You may not have heard David's last comment, which was that he wishes the medical community would take responsibility for this. Why is mesh being so